Alright kids, today we're talking about King George III. Now many of you may know him as a king who lost to America during the Revolutionary War, but I'm going to tell you that he was much more than that. He was a great, morally righteous king that had a very tumultuous life, and his poop was purple. George was born in 1738 in London. Growing up, he was extremely well educated. He could write in English and German. He learned chemistry, physics, math, music, law, astronomy, and many other things. In other words, he's way smarter than you. He was relatively unheralded until his father, Frederick, Prince of Wales, died of a lung abscess he got while playing cricket. Suddenly, George was now the heir apparent. In 1761, he was crowned King George III. He also married his wife, Sophia Charlotte. He was very faithful and never had a mistress. King George was very religiously pious, so when he was king, he was appalled by the lack of moral standards in his family. So he enacted the Royal Marriage Act in 1772 that basically meant you can't marry anyone unless I say so. He was also responsible with his personal finances. He rented land to Parliament in exchange for a steady income, a tradition that continues to this day. King George seemed like a fine king, until he wasn't. The turmoil started when he appointed Lord Bute to negotiate the Treaty of Paris in 1762, and Britain ended up getting fleeced. Now the British were in debt and needed to raise some money, so they decided to tax the colonies. Now we all know how the story goes from here. The Boston Tea Party, no taxation without representation, the Revolutionary War, you get the gist. But what people don't know is how the war ruined King George's health, both mentally and physically, for the remainder of his life. He considered abdication for his failures in the war. He had an attack of insanity in 1788. From that point, his health rapidly began deteriorating. King George III was involved in another war when the French monarchy was overthrown by the new French Republic. France was planning to go to war with every country that had a monarch. Napoleon planned to invade Britain, so King George rallied volunteer fighters in 1803 and defended his nation. This would be one of the last things King George would do as a monarch. Although King George technically ruled until 1820, by 1810 he was so ill that his son was running the country, basically. He had cataracts, was deaf, had dementia, had rheumatism, and had a condition called porphyria, which basically made his urine and feces purple. He lived his last years in constant pain. When he finally died, his son took over permanently. Many people seem to view King George in a negative manner, but all things considered, he was not a horrible king. So the next time you see someone bad-mouthing King George, you better say, you know what? It's a free country. Say whatever you want, man.